Tonight, I will tell you a story about power, secrets, and a quiet night that suddenly shocked the world. It was the middle of the night on January 3rd, 2026. The city of Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, was resting. Most people were sleeping peacefully, completely unaware of the powerful military action about to arrive. In his private home, the country's leader, Nicolas Maduro, was also asleep. To the rest of the world, it looked like a normal, quiet night. But high in the dark sky, something was moving. Without warning, loud noises filled the air over the city. Fighter jets roared fiercely, and big explosions shook the solid ground. The capital city woke up to a sudden, deep fear. Something big and shocking was happening right outside their windows. The United States military had come. It was not a small visit or a gentle warning, but a full-scale attack. Their specific goal was to catch Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro. This was a very unusual thing to do. No one expected a powerful country to send its military to capture another country's president straight from his home. This massive event did not just happen by itself. It was not a sudden choice made in the dark. The people of Caracas did not know it yet, but this terrifying raid was the end of many months of secret work by the Trump administration. On this night, something in the air had finally broken, and their world was about to change forever. To understand how this shocking night happened, we must look back at the months before the raid. The quiet tension had been growing for a long time. In 2024, Venezuela held an election, but many people said the results were not fair. Nicolas Maduro kept his power, but the world watched closely. The Trump administration in the United States did not agree with the election. They decided it was time to put much more pressure on Venezuela. By late 2025, President Donald Trump took a very serious step. He officially named two Venezuelan groups as foreign terrorist organizations. Even more surprisingly, the U.S. government stated that Maduro himself led one of these groups. This was a massive change. It allowed the United States to look at Maduro not just as a national leader, but as the head of a dangerous terrorist group. Soon, the political words turned into physical actions. In November, the USS Gerald R. Ford, a huge American aircraft carrier, moved deep into the Caribbean Sea. U.S. military forces began stopping many ships in the ocean, claiming they carried illegal drugs for Venezuelan groups. They also started taking control of oil tankers filled with Venezuelan oil. A sudden drone strike even hit a dock inside Venezuela, which the U.S. said was used for drugs. The threat was becoming very real. President Trump stated publicly that U.S. troops would attack inside the country. The U.S. even made a special deal to use airports in nearby Trinidad and Tobago for their military flights. Behind the scenes, U.S. intelligence teams were working hard. They secretly watched Maduro, learning his daily habits and exactly where he spent his time. To justify this, the administration used a special legal idea from an old 1980 Justice Department memo. This document gave them a legal way to act. The trap was slowly closing around him. The whole operation was getting ready for these actions. But these quiet pressures in the ocean and secret plans in the shadows were only the beginning. This quiet discomfort was about to become a violent storm. By the end of 2025, the secret plan was finally complete. U.S. warships and aircraft were already waiting in position around the dark waters of the Caribbean. On the ground in Venezuela, Elite intelligence teams had carefully confirmed Nicolas Maduro's exact location. Everything was completely set. There was only one thing left to do. The entire operation was waiting for one person to say yes. That person was the President of the United States. Would Donald Trump give the final, dangerous order? The final 24 hours before the mission were full of extreme tension. In Washington, D.C., deep inside the White House Situation Room, top military and political leaders held their last intelligence briefing. They carefully reviewed the critical details and the massive risks. The decision was immense. The administration had made earlier public statements saying it would not seek to forcibly change the government in Venezuela. They had also stated that land strikes would need official approval from Congress. These earlier promises now conflicted heavily with the bold secret plan sitting on the table. Across the hemisphere, special soldiers and pilots waited in the shadows. Highly trained Delta Force operators checked their combat gear in silence. Pilots sat in the dark cockpits of their advanced aircraft, making their final system checks. They were spread across many different military bases, but they all felt the exact same quiet, heavy readiness. Every single soldier and pilot was deeply focused, knowing a monumental mission depended completely on them. All eyes and ears were on Washington, waiting for the president's final command. President Trump thought about the power of his military and the heavy weight of his choice. He knew this bold action would shock the world, but he believed it was necessary. The critical moment arrived late on a Friday night, January 2nd, 2026. At precisely 10:46 p.m. Eastern Time, President Donald Trump gave his final approval for the risky mission. He looked at the military leaders in the room and told them simply, "Good luck and Godspeed." With that single order, the complex gears of a massive, secret military machine began to turn. Over 150 aircraft got ready for takeoff. The point of no return was finally crossed. By the time the sun came up, nothing in their world would ever be the same. The night sky over the Caribbean Sea suddenly turned into a busy highway of warplanes. More than 150 aircraft roared to life from 20 different bases. The first Special Forces helicopters lifted silently into the dark sky. They flew extremely low, just 100 feet above the black water, to stay completely hidden from enemy radar. They moved like quiet ghosts toward the Venezuelan coast. As these stealthy helicopters got closer, the second part of the attack began with overwhelming force. At about 2 o'clock in the morning, the quiet sleep of Caracas was shattered by loud explosions. Heavy fighter jets and advanced bombers struck their targets with incredible precision. They systematically destroyed radar stations and air defense systems. As the military infrastructure crumbled, the city's electricity suddenly went out. Total confusion and deep fear gripped the people on the ground. With the main defenses completely crippled, the extraction helicopters began their final descent toward Nicolas Maduro's private compound. It was located inside Fort Tayuna, a massive military base. The path seemed clear and perfectly safe. But just as the helicopters got very close to the ground, a fierce new fire suddenly erupted. Bright anti-aircraft guns and small arms fire burst from the compound area. Venezuelan forces were still fully active and fighting back hard. One of the American helicopters was hit violently by enemy fire, but miraculously, it was still able to fly. Inside the cabin, The soldiers felt the aircraft shake terribly as dust and small stones flew everywhere. The moment the landing gear touched the ground, loud gunfire started immediately from below. Elite Delta Force soldiers and FBI agents quickly jumped out into the dark night. They ran fast to find cover, shooting back at the unseen enemy. Moving with perfect training, they reached the main building and blew open the heavy front door with a loud, controlled explosion. Suddenly, a strange, heavy quiet followed the blast. The team entered quickly. Their bright flashlights cut through the deep darkness, showing expensive furniture and fine art. Every single second was critically important. Then, a calm but urgent voice came over the radio. Target located. Second floor, east wing. The team rushed quickly to a large bedroom. Inside, they found Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, completely surprised in their sleep. Maduro tried to shout and pull away, but the highly trained team was far too strong. They quickly dragged him and his wife from bed. The capture was incredibly swift and complete. But as they fought their way back out to the helicopters, protecting their targets under constant enemy gunfire, they knew the real nightmare was not over. They were still deep inside a burning, hostile country, and the entire Venezuelan military was now fully awake and looking for them. The damaged helicopters flew low and incredibly fast toward the safety of the coast. They fought their way out of a deeply hostile country, leaving the burning, dark city of Caracas far behind them. The physical fight was over, but the real shockwave was just beginning. Hours later, a single photograph quickly changed the entire world. It showed Nicolas Maduro sitting quietly on an American military ship, the USS Yuma. He wore a simple gray suit and headphones. The powerful leader was now officially held by the United States. Immediately, the international community was deeply divided. The United Nations Secretary General was very worried, calling this unexpected military action a dangerous new example for the world. In Latin America, many angry leaders said the U.S. had crossed an unacceptable line. China and Russia spoke strongly against a sudden raid, calling it a clear use of force that completely broke international law. Back in the United States, a massive constitutional fight exploded. The Trump administration calmly explained that this was not a war, but a simple law enforcement operation to catch a wanted criminal. But angry politicians argued that the president had illegally bypassed Congress, using massive military power without permission. However, all these intense legal talks happened after the fact. The undeniable reality on the ground had already changed forever. The next day, the people of Venezuela woke up to a terrifying power vacuum. Nicolas Maduro was gone, but the country's true future was totally unclear. The vice president defiantly demanded his immediate release on state television. Meanwhile, opposition leaders urged the citizens to prepare for a new freedom. The broken country was now caught hopelessly between its old, angry leaders, a divided opposition, and the direct, heavy involvement of a superpower. If we step back and look at this shocking event from a distance, the story is actually quite simple, but it carries a very heavy weight. For a long time, the United States government did not agree with the leader of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. They officially called him a dangerous criminal and the head of a terrorist group. For many months, the U.S. slowly put military pressure on his country and secretly planned a massive operation to arrest him. Late one night in January, the U.S. president decided it was finally time to act. He gave the final order, and a huge secret military machine woke up. Over 150 American warplanes and silent helicopters flew across the dark ocean toward the Venezuelan coast. In the middle of the night, loud bombs suddenly destroyed the city's power and military bases. The capital city of Caracas went totally dark. Special American soldiers landed right at the president's private house. Even though the local guards fought back with heavy gunfire, the highly trained American team broke inside. They quickly caught Maduro and his wife, put them in a helicopter, and flew them away into the night. The very next morning, the world saw a shocking picture of the powerful leader sitting as a helpless prisoner. Many countries were incredibly angry, saying the sudden attack broke international law. Today, Venezuela is left in the dark, caught in a scary power vacuum with no clear future. Let's imagine this terrifying night through the eyes of someone who actually lived there. Imagine a normal person just sleeping in their home in Caracas. I was deeply asleep in my bed. It was a quiet Friday night, just like any other night. Suddenly, a terrible, deep noise woke me up. The heavy windows of my house shook wildly in their frames. At first, I thought it was a bad earthquake. But then, the electricity completely went out. The whole busy city was suddenly plunged into pitch-black darkness. I carefully walked to my window and looked outside. The sky was not dark and peaceful anymore. Instead, it was violently lit up with bright orange flashes from explosions. I could clearly hear the fierce roar of jet engines above me, much louder and closer than anything I had ever heard before. My heart was beating so incredibly fast in my chest. I felt completely helpless. I held my family very close to me in the dark, just listening to the heavy bombs falling far away. We were surrounded by total confusion and fear on the ground. We didn't know what was happening. We didn't know if a sudden war had started or who was attacking our city. The fear was thick and heavy in the room. It wasn't until the next morning, when the warm sun finally came up, that we saw the shocking news on our phones. Our president was gone. He had been taken away in the middle of the night by foreign soldiers. I felt a very strange mix of deep fear and complete disbelief. In just a few short hours, while I was hiding terrified in my bedroom, the whole world I knew had completely disappeared. Now, we are left in a power vacuum, just waiting and wondering what will happen to our country and our daily lives tomorrow. Power is a very fragile thing. A leader can go to sleep in a heavily guarded fortress, feeling completely safe, and wake up as a prisoner in the dark. History shows us that small choices made in secret rooms can suddenly change the lives of millions of people forever. We cannot always control the big, frightening events of the world, but we can always try to understand them and learn from them. Learning English through stories like this helps you see the world from many different angles. It is not just about memorizing vocabulary. It is about feeling the emotions of the people inside the events. So I have a question for you. What do you think will happen next for Venezuela and its people? Hey there, just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like. Write your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really helps to create even better English videos for you here on English for a Day. You can also listen to this story one more time before you sleep to practice catching the new words naturally. Thank you for learning with English for a Day. Have a peaceful night, and I will see you in the next story.